Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is an NYC based first grade special education teacher who's no stranger to creating magic for others in a world that can often feel devoid of it. She's a Fordham University graduate and one of five siblings, which I'm sure has given her lots of experience with conflict resolution and teaching others. She's also my best friend. I'm very honored to welcome Aida Mehmeti. Aida, thank you so much for being on the
Hi.
podcast. I'm very excited to
Thank you
dive
for
into your world.
having me. Thank you for having me. I mean, I don't know how exciting it'll be, but, I
Of
think,
course, I'm very
yeah, this is
excited.
great. I'm excited. I can't wait to talk to you more. What do you wanna know?
Yeah, I think there's so much to explore with what you do as a teacher because there's so many challenges that come up. I think it's been talked about a lot both in the news and even on TV shows. I mean, we have Abbott Elementary going into some of those topics, and we're at a time in an administration where things are hard. This is also right after COVID, and COVID was an experience. So I know you faced a lot of challenges as a teacher, and I'm just curious in terms of what first inspired you to get into teaching.
You know, when you're a kid and, like, your older sister's like, "Sit down, you're my student," or, like, your friend is like, "Sit down, I'm gonna teach you," and you're like, "Mhm, I have no choice because 'cause you're older," and then you enjoy it, and then you become the older person, and you're like, "No, you sit down, I'm gonna teach you," and then my dad was always like, "I think teaching would be great for you, you're so patient." Patient, exclamation point, question mark, unclear anymore. But, yeah, it was just something that was always just in my mind. I was always so good with kids. I was always like the mom of any group. And I think as your best friend and you being mine, I think you know I have a lot of those older sibling slash mom like qualities, unfortunately and fortunately. Um, so yeah, it was just something I always wanted, and then when I was in Hunter, I had met my friend, and she was like, "Let's go work at this place, like, it'll kill us some hours between, classes, because it would be, like, all day at school," and it was like, "We'll just go make some money for a couple of hours," so we did that, and it was, like, camp paperwork stuff, but then in the building, there was, like, a nursery school, and it was like, "Alright, you can, like, go in there, like, you could be a floating teacher," and I was like, "I don't even know what that means," and then I got into it, and it's like a smaller private nursery school on the Upper West Side, and I worked there for about 12 years, and it was definitely a wonderful experience in a lot of ways, and then, after a while, COVID hit, and a lot just was happening, and it made me really sit down and reevaluate a lot of things, and I was traveling an hour and a half to and from, and I wasn't getting the fulfillment that, you know, I once was, and I couldn't figure out why, and so I had finally finished all of my professional certificates because with, DOE, you gotta, like, cross all of your, T's and dot all of your I's and do all these tests and everything, and so I was like, "You know what? Let me just see how it goes. Let me get all this done this year, and if I can manage to get my certificate and work in a public school next year, like, I think that that's something that I'll be ready for." Ready was an interesting word to use because, the shift from a private Upper West Side nursery school to a first grade special ed ICT class in a public school in Brooklyn, New York, very different. And it was funny because I remember my interview and it was like very Montessori, Reggio, child-led play fun. And then I just had like a, but like, what are the standards that you were trying to reach in this lesson? And I was like, huh? Because I think it was very different. It wasn't like I wasn't writing up lesson plans when I was doing nursery school. Everything was like collaborative group work. We planned everything out, but it was much more follow the kids. Versus DOE, you have a lot of expectations. There are people that have the expectations, and not only administration, not only citywide, but even the parents have a big shift in expectation, and very much rightfully so. First grade, I want to be honest, I think, and look, we've been through all the grades. I think first grade is the hugest jump. I think from their expectations in kindergarten to first grade is like Like, I have kids come to my class, we give them a test, like, that first week just to, like, gauge what they remember from the year before, and these kids are like, "Oh my god," and we're like, "No, no, no, it's okay, it doesn't count, just show what you know," and, like, they're just like you see the anxiety already building up, and I'm like, "Oh, man," like, how do I guide this in a way that's not scary, but that would really just promote their confidence in what they know. And so a lot of what we do all day long is like, show what you know, tell me what you know. Why do you think that? And really just encouraging their thinking. And it's a lot, and this is now my 5th year, but I feel like in a zone where I get it. I get a lot of what works, and I get a lot of what doesn't, and I feel like I've found, like, a good balance, and I have a co-teacher, which is really lucky because we're in an ICT class, so do you know what that is?
I vaguely remember
Co-teaching.
from
Yeah, so it's
okay.
integrated co-teaching. It's 60% gen ed, 40% special ed, don't quote me on that, but the whole point is for the students to work together and support each other, even on the kids who are struggling versus the kids aren't, because I could have a student with an IEP in my special ed side, however, they may not need the one-on-one support that I can offer because, whatever their IEP states could just be something else. And so academically, they don't need my tier 2 support where I really pull them aside and like work and break it down for them. They got it. And so it's amazing to see the different strengths in every single child, and every single child has something to bring to the table. And all of my students know. I they can quote me on this and they will tell you it's an Aidaism, but I always tell them it's okay not to know, but it's never okay not to try. And that is something that I feel like I've lived by unknowingly, and then once I was, like, in the classroom, it was just coming out of me naturally, and it's like, correct. It's always okay not to know, and it's just never okay not to try, and you never know where that can get you, and school was always a safe place for me, and I loved learning, and I loved reading, and I love writing, and I love kids, and I love working with kids, and yeah, it's going year 5 public school, year 17 teaching, which is crazy to say.
It's so beautiful too because that outlook on life, I mean, applies to so many things. I mean, as an adult, there's so many things that maybe you wanna try out and go for, and you could be unsure, you could overthink, you could think maybe you're not good enough. You just don't know. You don't know, and the trick is to try anyway. And I think that's what's gotten both of us to a lot of amazing places in life, and I feel like that's the key to a lot of other people. And I think another part of what's beautiful what you said is the individuality of each student and getting to know that and seeing what their strengths are and kind of lifting them up with that. I mean, I feel like you've done that just with the people in your life, and to know that you're doing that with your students too, I mean, it makes sense. And I think that's one of your strengths. And that's not always easy, I think especially in education and the systems that are there are not always enough, and it's a lot of depending on other teachers and maybe checking in with people and seeing the best way to help people. And I'm curious if there was any particular moment for you in the whole time you've been an educator that really stood out as a moment where you thought, this is what I'm meant to be doing.
I feel like I've had a few of those moments, um, but I think one of the biggest moments was my first year. I was learning a lot. I don't even remember the programs we were using because we've switched a few in the few years that I've been there, but I've had students, like, completely in the beginning of the year just be like, "Nope, I don't know this. Nope, this is too hard. I'm just not doing this." And being like, "Okay, let's try. Let's try it this way or let's try it that way." And I remember there was this kid who couldn't even tell me all the letters of the alphabet. He was 7 years old, and he still couldn't tell me all the letters of the alphabet, and so we were working on it together, and then we were working on a very early, early, early reader book, so it was, like, 3 or 4 words. I see a dog or something like that. It was very repetitive, but he was getting it, and he was, like, seeing things that were familiar and picking up things that, we'd worked on together, and there was this, like, spark in him when he, like, finished, and I said, "You just read this page to me, I didn't even help you," and he had this look on his face like, "No, I didn't," and I'm like, "No, you did, and we'll do it again," and so he sat there and he did it again, and he was just like, "I can do this, like, this was great," and we spoke to his parents, and he was just, like, so happy and so proud, and it was just like he had, like, no belief in himself. He was just like, "No, I'm not doing this. I don't care. I'm not doing this." Wouldn't even write his name on a paper, and I'm like, "Okay, I get it. School's not always fun. School is a lot of hard work, but if I promise to make it fun, will you be able to, like, work with me? Just give me a try." And so I think the biggest thing, the most important thing a teacher can do is really build trust with their students. Because if that child does not trust you, if that child is afraid of you, if that child is afraid to speak their mind, they will never reach their full potential in the class. And like, what's your job then? Are you just babysitting? No. So it's like really finding, you know, those moments that challenge you as an educator. In those moments, I feel like you really get to see your strength and you really get to see like how diverse your learning has been, and it tests your patience, but it's your job. It's your job to figure out how to teach these kids. It's your job to connect with them. Parents are sending their kids to you and they're trusting you with the most important thing in their lives, the most valuable thing in their lives. And I always end my parent teacher conferences like that, like, thank you for trusting us and thank you for partnering with us. Like, it's the biggest takeaway is like that trust and that partnership, because if we don't have that, there's no harmony in our relationship, and it gives the kids a very confusing message. So, yeah, I feel like that interpersonal connection with the kids, it's huge. It's huge. Even if it's something small, like you love the same food, or you vacation to the same place, or you're wearing the same sneakers. I was wearing the same sneakers with as this one girl at the beginning of the year, and when I tell you, anytime we wore those sneakers, that's it. She was by my side. She was like, "We're twins. Look at us." And she would like sit with me all day and like want to work with me. So it's like just finding what grabs them. And look, like in a class of 25, 30 students, it's not easy, especially if you're an only teacher. um, Luckily, in an ICT, there's 2 teachers, so the gen ed and the special ed, but it's never, "I'm only teaching the gen ed and I'm only teaching the special ed, and we're just never gonna do this together." It's like, no, this is the goal, right? The goal is for them to mainstream and work together and learn from each other, because they can. The students who are struggling can learn from students who have mastered something, and the students in my classroom know when you're done with the work, if you've finished everything you can and you are willing to help someone, go ahead, help somebody. And I feel like that's just so important, building their confidence, but giving them the ability to like share their knowledge too is really wonderful. And I have students that flow back and forth from, I teach, we kind of try to like split the class, whether it's like parallel teaching, meaning like half and like we're teaching the exact same thing, or alternate teaching where it's like it's a little modified on my end. Um, it looks very different in a lot of ways, but I feel like, you know, the way me and my co-teacher do it, it's not all subjects where we split up a little bit, but the ones that we know would really benefit from like more intense one-on-one attention, we're able to do that. And teaching in smaller groups, oh, whoever thought about that, brilliant, because it really, really does give you the opportunity to know the students better, but it also gives them the opportunity to feel more comfortable in a smaller kind of setting. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of, you're their mom, you're their dad, you're their therapist, you're their babysitter, you're their nurse. You know what I mean? It's a lot of all the things. And anytime I look at any of my students, whether they're struggling or when they're succeeding, I think about my daughter. I think about when she goes to school and who's gonna be taking care of her, and are they gonna value her for what she has to offer? Are they gonna support her where she struggles? Because we all struggle with stuff, right? Nobody's perfect. There's always something. And so I think after having a kid, I've become even more, like, empathetic and sympathetic and just aware of how heavy it is to send your child somewhere for a full day and to trust that you're gonna feed them, that you're gonna make sure they use the bathroom, that they're safe, that they're not losing their things, that they're doing their work, that they're taking home what they need for homework. It's a lot. It's a lot of trust and it's, a lot of work. But again, I think about my child going forward and what's going to come back. And look, I can help her for early childhood grades. After that, I'm going to have to send her over to my husband so he can handle the teenage years because, early childhood is my thing. Not sure how I'll do with the teenage stuff, but yeah, like every day is just like a different day, a different learning day.
I'm sure. And what's beautiful about so much of what you were sharing is that there's that connection between you and the co-teacher, the students, the parents. There's all these connections that are being formed, nurtured, and especially the confidence in each student being nurtured. I think what you said about the small groups is a big part of that, making students feel comfortable to ask questions, to make a mistake if they have to, and learn from it, and just trust you enough to be comfortable enough to learn and try again. And all of that kind of comes together in a way that seems like you figured out a system that works for what's best for your students, not necessarily what's just being put out there by anyone else, but what works for them. And so that does bring up the question then, like when obstacles do come up, whether it's in the classroom, in your specific classroom, or just in general, the way education is being treated or not treated well enough, or not given enough attention, not given enough funding, whatever it may be. There's so many things. COVID was a big one, and virtual learning. How do you manage that in a way where it doesn't put out the fire inside of you when it comes to teaching?
That's a great question. Um, a few things. One, I have to say, I work with really wonderful people. I have a great core first grade team, phenomenal. And I've been blessed to meet beautiful souls throughout the building that, I can call my friends and that I spend time with. And every aspect, whether it's collaborating with my first grade team or speaking with my social friend group, like we're all there going through it together and we all have ideas and we've all been through something similar and supporting each other is huge. Like, it could feel so lonely if you're not on this team, you know what I mean? And I've been very lucky and very blessed. My first year in public school, I was, my co-teacher, Miss Louise Lombardo, one of my favorite humans in the entire universe, taught me so much about everything, about life, about the classroom, about, camaraderie, and about respect, and working together with your coworkers, and really putting in your best effort. And then also sharing that with your coaches. Hey guys, I made this sheet. I find that it helps my lower kids with their math problems, with, the 100 chart or whatever. If you guys want to use this, here you go. And so we created that kind of atmosphere where we could just share material with each other. But also our group chats are nonstop. Like, guys, I really need this sheet of paper. Anybody on prep right now that can run and like make this copy for me? Like, like if you don't have your group of people, it could feel so isolating and lonely and overwhelming. But the moment you find, you know, your home within this space and you find your comfort, I think that it really opens the way for you to grow and being vulnerable. And also, in the same breath, you're also there for somebody else and being somebody else's strength while they're being yours. And like you can know it or you cannot know it. It's kind of just remarkable how that works. Um, yeah, just really that collaboration with such amazing people like teachers, paras, school aides, like, oh, such wonderful humans that really made my experience here uh, productive and encouraged me because as a first year public school teacher in such a intense setting, I'm creating IEPs, I'm running meetings, and I'm just like, ah, and having people to be like, It's okay. It happens. Let's go through it. What do we need? What can I do? What do you need to do to best prepare? What are you trying to get across? So really it's very special when you meet people that you can have this type of relationship with because I've worked with other people in the past where there was no collaborating. They were like, no, and it's like, that's not how this is supposed to go. So yeah, I definitely think the people that you work with huge impact on your day-to-day mental, for sure. And I know it because we can be on vacation and our group chats are still going, whether it's about school or whether it's about something completely different. But creating that space where you have these people in your life that you can turn to if you're stuck or you're having a hard day and they get it because they're there and they've seen it and they know exactly what you're talking about. I can come home and unleash and it's like, but that's not what I want to do. I want to come home and just refresh and rejuvenate and focus on my home life too. And so I think, yeah, the people and, trusting yourself too. Like trusting your experience, trusting you know what you're doing. Don't let everything else get in your brain. Just because this parent said one thing doesn't mean it's true. It's like, and it's like you can't help it. You could be a teacher forever. If a parent's like, I need you to do this for my kid. Why aren't you? You're like, wait, but I am. Like, what else can I do? And so like I said, other teachers have been through it. And so it's very helpful to have that support system.
Absolutely, and I think, like what you said, that's not the case everywhere. And whether it's being a teacher, whether it's working in an office, whether it's working in entertainment, you never know the situation you're gonna be in and the people you're gonna be working with, and it's not always going to be that perfect home-like feel. And so when it does, it just that's the magic in it. It comes together to create something that serves everyone and serves a bigger purpose. And it's beautiful that you found that because, yeah, it doesn't happen everywhere. And I'm sure it does help in those moments where you're questioning yourself because imposter syndrome is a thing. I think it happens to everybody, no matter what their job is. And then you have a whole other element now as a parent, and that adds so many more complex layers to things. I think both how you teach and maybe when you come home, how you're teaching and raising your child. So how do you think that has affected each other since becoming a
Lord, I cry more at work. Just because, like, there are so many things that happen that I'm like, "Oh my god, you did it! This is fantastic, you worked so hard," and then I'm, like, hysterical crying with them, and I'm like, "Ugh," and they're like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying?" And then I come home and I talk to my daughter who tells me about her day and her animals and her colors and her numbers, and I think being a teacher has definitely helped me in the sense of knowing academically and, developmentally where she should be, and I think that makes me feel better or makes me be like, "Okay, what else do I need to do to, like, support her in areas that she might be struggling?" I think that being a teacher has helped me in the sense where I can I can see how she's learning already. I can see how she's growing and developing already. Like, I can see whether or not she'll be okay if I send her to school in September. And I can see whether or not, she can turn and talk to a friend and be friendly. And I think that being a teacher has taught me to realize every moment is intentional when you're talking to your students. And then when you're at home and you have a child that's soaking everything up from you, literally everything has to be intentional. You can't drop the ball for like a second because, like, right, say you curse, and it's like that's what they're saying for the next 2 hours is that curse word. They're always watching, they are always recording. And then you start to see the way they, like, play and treat their little animals is a reflection of what they do with you, and so it's wonderful to be able to see that, to be like, "Oh, that's how I sound? Okay, cool." Sometimes I'm like other times I'm like, "Could we have said that a nicer way?" So I think being a mom 1000% has shifted a lot of how I see things at work, and I think that being a teacher definitely shapes the kind of mom that I am because I've done so much research, I've worked with so many children of so many different ages, and it is comforting in the sense that, like, I think I know what I'm doing, but then sometimes I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing." But, the major things, I think so.
I think that's usually a good sign, though. People who ask that question are always on the right track. I think it's the people who think like, "Oh, no, I'm good. I'm perfect. I got it." They're the ones who
Oh,
I'm
that's not
like,
me.
maybe not so much."
No, that's definitely not me. I'm
But it
like,
does make me
no,
curious because you've had so many great experiences as a teacher and then, of course, at home and everywhere in between. I mean, you've been on this educational journey for a long time. And I'm curious, where do you find magic most?
I find magic most when I'm really just walking around my classroom and just listening in on the interactions, on what they're working on, how they're working through it, what they're saying. Kind of similar to when you see your kid playing and they're like using your language. It's kind of similar when you walk around the classroom. You've taught them, you've taught the lesson, you've given them the tools, you've given them everything. And now it's like, okay, how are they using that? Did they really grasp what you were trying to teach? How are they interpreting it? How are they visualizing it? How are they exploring it? And so just I find that when I walk around and I catch those aha moments or those good friend moments or those supportive friend moments, I think those are the best moments for me because they're in real time. I'm watching it happen between them and their friends. It's not, "Okay, raise your hand. Who knows this answer? Oomph, you got it right." It's more, "Oh, what answer you need help? This is how I did it. Here, let me show you." Or, "No, no, 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 you're doing it wrong. Hold on, come back. I'll show you. It's like this." And it's like hearing them support each other and not wanna see them fall or not wanna see them mess up or, you know, see the pride in working with each other or sharing their ideas. It's like those are my favorite moments because you can get hundreds on all the tests. That's great. But if you don't ever speak to anybody next to you, if you don't participate, if, you know, you don't put that effort to like, be active and active participant in our classroom. Our classroom is our village. I tell them that all the time. I'm like, it's like a little village. Do you guys do Minecraft? This village is in Minecraft. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, sure. This is our village and we're here to take care of each other. And anyone who's taking care of each other, like we see that that's what we're looking for. I care about your grades. I'm all about grades. Yay, grades and data. But I'm more concerned with raising good humans, and I think that it takes a village for that, not just the parents, the teachers too. And seeing those moments, they're beautiful moments, and I think that's kind of the best part.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a difficult job, and it's one that goes overlooked way too often, raising good humans, when really everyone just focuses on the education part, but there's so much more that
Mhm.
goes into it day to day, and so many different just life issues that come up. They're little people, and that's gonna get complicated day to day depending on what they're feeling, what they're going through at home maybe, what they're going through with another classmate, and
Exactly.
so that all comes into play. And it adds to also the complexity for you and your experience, even on the hard days, whether it is with education or if it's social relationships or even just the system itself. And so I'm curious what advice you would give to others about managing those difficult days and how you get past them and also overcome the imposter syndrome.
Uh, I would say we all have those days. We've all been there. We've all been the first year teacher. We've all been the second year teacher. We all been the untenured teacher. Um, and I think that it's important that people treat themselves with kindness and with grace. And with teachers, it's really hard because it's the kind of job that You need to anticipate what's coming. You need to be ready. You need to be prepared. This color doesn't match this, it's gonna drive you crazy all day long. Like, there are parts of teachers that, like, is a teacher thing, and it's, one of the best things, about being a teacher is just being able to see, yeah, man, just everything. I have all these memories just, like, flashing through my head, and it's just like, remember, we've all been there. That's it. Just be kind, and also know that when you go home, it's okay to turn it off. Turn off the messaging system. Don't look at your email. It's important that you do that because you burn out very fast. You can burn out so fast. And that's why I was getting lost in my thought before because I was just like it, it was hard. It had its challenging moments and had its great moments, but looking back, I wouldn't be the person that I am now if I hadn't had all of my experiences, whether they were observations that were like, let's try again, or let's send you to this training, or observations that were like, I told you this is what you needed to work on. I saw that you worked on it and it's great. So never giving up on yourself, never fully believing everything everybody else has to say about you because you may have seen it go one way and they saw it go another way, but only you know how you planned it. Only you know your kids really, and I find that every time I have an observation, it does not go the way my normal lesson plans go because obviously this why would they, you know? Why would they? But I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I can't stress this anymore. This is how I teach. You can come see this and you will catch the moments where it's like they're rolling on the floor and I'm taking my time to be like, all right, let's try to like do something else with our body and then we'll come back to the table. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things that can go wrong, and then there are so many different things that can go right, and guess what? You can plan and plan and plan. Sometimes it doesn't always go a plan. Really, have grace with yourself, treat yourself with kindness, I think is, like, my biggest thing, and know that we've been there before. Every teacher has been there. They could say that they never have. Every teacher has been there. Whether it's a argument with a parent or whether it's a disagreement about grades, homework, water bottles, I don't know. We've all been there. And that's why I think also when you go back to what I said about having that support system, whether it's within the classroom, whether it's within the grade, whether it's within the entire building, find that person or that group that you know you can turn to and value each other's opinions and trust each other. And I've been very, very lucky to find those groups there. And then I also have people like you who have never, ever, ever once discouraged me or made me feel like, yeah, you're right, you're not good at this, try something else. Or, you have always just been so positive, and I know I've turned to you on some very hard occasions, and you've just been like, "But you can do this. I know you can do this." And they're lucky to have you and they love you. And, sometimes that's just what you need. You just need that you can do this. It's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself, trust the process. And if at the end you're extremely not happy, guess what? You can go find something else to do and hopefully find some joy in whatever it is that you do because life is too short to go to work every day and be miserable because you spend more of your day at work with the people that you work with than at home sometimes. And I think that can really affect a lot of people's mental as well. So find a good support system, whether it's in the school, outside the school, and have grace and kindness with yourself because we all started out fresh. We were all learning and still are.
Yeah, completely. And, it's clear you have a natural gift for what you do, and it shows in every aspect of your life. And like you said, it's a lot of adaptability sometimes in the moment and figuring out how to adapt to the needs of others and what's going on in that moment. And it just made me think of so many other things, but mainly between taking acting classes and karaoke nights, how do you think that you not being a stranger to putting yourself out there has come into play with being a teacher? Because it takes a lot of putting yourself out there and talking to people and socializing and kind of knowing how to adapt to things when they change.
You know, it's the karaoke for me. I'm constantly singing, and these kids are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, you're not doing your work, so I'm just gonna sing until you do." And they're like, "Okay, we'll start." You know, I think as a teacher, you have to you have to laugh. You have to have fun. You have to. You're working with kids. They're still 6 and 7 years old. Like, they still wanna laugh and play, and they still wanna build with Legos. So if you can find, like, 10 minutes during the day where you can do something that would bring them joy or excitement, like, oh, I have a perfect example. So there's something called Donors Choose, and teachers could um, select items or wish list kind of things and really just throw it out there. And hopefully, you know, you have donors donate and then you can get the product. And so when I was working with Louise, it was Thanksgiving and she had sent me this link for something that I had also seen on TV. And it was like this school. It had these little robot balls and they made balloons and they attached it to the robot ball and then controlled it. So they made their own like Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade in their hallway. And I was like, "Let's see if we can get it funded." These balls were like $50 each, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna, like, request, like, 9 or 10, and if it gets donated, great, let's, like, see." And it did. It got funded so fast, thank God, like, all the people who were supportive, and, the amount of times I hear, "Oh my god, this is the best day ever," and they only had 5 minutes with, like, this remote control, like, little button on an iPad and their ball is just zooming back and forth from the room with a taped on turkey that they drew, and they're racing with their friends, and then the balls are falling over, but they're having just fun, but they're doing it through science and learning through excitement, through, like, holidays and things like that, and to hear, like, "This is the best day ever," so many times during the year, you must be doing something right. Even if it's, like, I don't know. I don't even know, like decorating a cookie, you know what I mean? Or watching a movie in the auditorium as a grade, you know? It's that excitement, it's knowing that they wanna come back that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's so important, I think, also to just show them that learning can be fun. I think that's become so essential and just keeping kids interested. I mean, it's the same thing with reading in general. I mean, we live in such a tech age that that's becoming harder and harder to keep kids interested. I mean, we grew up with book fairs and all these other incentives to get kids to read, and there's not as many. And there's new methods, and I feel like it's about figuring out what those new methods are and putting them into practice, which it seems like what you're doing, which is an amazing thing. And I'm
I
sure
think you
within the everyday of social interactions and different kids interacting with each other, sometimes there could be conflicts, there could be other issues that come up. And I'm just curious how being one sibling of five comes into play also in being a teacher and kind of managing that.
well, I'm also the middle child. So I'm used to
But you don't act like it. I
everything.
will say that. You have older sibling energy.
I think yeah, I do. But if you ask my mom, "Eh, I have middle child syndrome sometimes too, but it's fine. It's okay. I've moved past it. We've all moved past it. We moved on." I think anticipating what the interactions will become, hearing, you know what's gonna escalate and what's not gonna escalate. You know when someone's saying something to you just to piss you off, and you know when someone's saying to you, like, innocently not meaning to offend you. And I think that being aware of social cues, even within children, I think I've learned that from being one of 5. I think crisis management, I am very good in a crisis, like, bing, bang, boom, I can handle it. Like, things will get done, and everybody will be safe, and then I'll cry. You know what I mean? Like, I'll handle everything, I'll be perfectly strong and tough as long as it's and then everything's done, I'll be like, "Okay, that was really hard." Um, but yeah, I think that being one of 5 is a blessing, and it's not for the weak, I must say. Uh, you're used to everybody around you. You're used to the noise. You're used to the noise. And I learned from my parents, how to grab attention without yelling, and that helps. You know, they needed to use it on their 5 kids, and I definitely got that from both of them, but from my dad, I got the, "That's right, fix it now." You know, like, just the look. He never had to say a word. It was the look, and they know if I give them a look, they're like, "Oh, that was a no for us." I'm like, "Exactly, good job." You know? And then with my mom, I know exactly the tone of voice that it's like, "Mm-mm, let's try this again." You know, you're not, because we're not yelling, we're not being nasty, we're not trying to belittle these kids, we're not trying to make them feel like our younger siblings, but it's managing, um, the behaviors. And that, I think behavioral management is, like, huge for a teacher, and it's hard every year. You get a different group of kids, it's different energies, different bodies. But I think that, yeah, definitely being one of 5 has helped with all of that.
Yeah, it's funny too because I think you have picked up so much from your parents, like you said, and how to deal with situations. I, for one, can attest to that you have picked up the look. You have a certain look that you give that I was like, I just know, and I'm like, "No, no, I'm getting out of here." But you're also good in a
Or like,
crisis,
"No,
like
no,
you
no, leave
said.
her alone for a
I
second.
distinctly yeah, like, just don't, just don't.
Back up."
But also good in a crisis, like you said, there was a point where we were both working at a camp, and distinctly remember this story because I was the leader of my group, and I was somewhere else, and I came to, like, the cabin where everyone was having lunch, and you were sitting there with your group, and you just saw something was wrong, and I was talking to one of the other, like, people in charge. They were looking at my finger, you were like, "What happened?" I was like, "I got stung by a bee in my finger." They're like, "Did you take the stinger out? Did you disinfect it? You have wraps?" And it was just like you were just like, "Oh, you need to be taken care of, like, what needs to be done? How do we get there?" And it was just it lives rent free in my head because 'cause you're so quick with it. It comes so natural to you. And obviously that's gonna come into play as a teacher. So it's amazing that you know that about yourself. And I think that's part of the beauty of where you are at in your educational journey is that you know yourself. And that's not always easy, especially in the times where life and situations are going to make you question yourself and you're going to overthink. And you're still going to have those moments, everyone does. But I'm really happy to know that you know yourself and you know what you're capable of and the skills you've picked up from all the people that you love in your life and how you're loving others with those same skills. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, well, thank you. I also just think I'm very protective, and you were one of the people that I'm very protective over. And so I was like, what happened? What do I need to do? Because I also brought you into it, and I wanted to make sure that, like, you were safe and you were in a good place, you know, and I'm very protective over the people that I love. And you are on the top of that list. And no bee's gonna sting my Maddie, okay?
It's true.
Without
You're
me
very
helping.
protective and it comes into play, I think, in every aspect of your life. Like I said, with your siblings, your family, your daughter, being a teacher, your friendships. I mean, you have a big family. Like all of it just comes into practice, and I feel like you put it into practice every day. And that kind of leads me to one of my biggest questions, which is how do you hope to create magic for others?
Hmm, that's a good question. You know, I think it goes back to building that connection and gaining that trust. And once you do, you know what lights certain people up or lights certain kids up. And I think that figuring out what their goals are, figuring out what they want, what's going to make them happy, in turn helps me create that magic. Um, I think that I always laugh and I always ask my kids at the end of the day, "Are you gonna come back tomorrow? Do you promise? You promise you'll come back?" Because I wanna make sure that school wasn't, not boring, but school wasn't something that brought them joy. And that's not something I ever wanna see, because I think especially teaching such young kids, they should feel joy every day, most of the day, because that's how they're learning, and that's part of their development, and learning how to, navigate social interactions, and learning how to advocate for yourself and for your friends, and speak up when you think something's wrong, or I think that that's one of the biggest things is just creating that safe space for them because without them feeling comfortable or excited or happy, there's no magic there. It would just be forced, and I would just be explicitly teaching and great, go home, see you tomorrow, versus like we take our time, we have incentives, we have, prizes, we do celebrations together, we celebrate birthdays, we celebrate every little thing we possibly could celebrate because it's worth it. It's worth seeing the joy in the kids' faces. It's worth, you know, the surprised look on their face. They were like, "Oh my god, we're getting pizza." It's like, "You're getting pizza," and they're just so excited and happy and experiencing things that, are new for the first time, and I think they create the magic for me more than I do it for them, and they have no idea that they do that, and they're just, the source of inspiration. Without them, I wouldn't be able to know what magic could be.
I think it's definitely a relationship. I think they create the magic and you definitely do it for them too. And it goes back and forth. And I think it's a big part of everything you've been doing and working towards in different aspects of leading you to where you are now and where you're headed next. Being an educator and an ever changing system and in your class gonna be changing every year. I think it's again, like we said, adaptability and connecting with others and leaning on the rest of the village, which is super important, super special. And Ada, I just want to thank you again for being on and getting to really dive into your everyday and all the things that you're up to, the magic that you're creating. You know, I was thinking the other day, for those who don't know, we were born the same year, and you are 2 months older than me. And I thought I was very lucky that that was the case because it means I was born into a world where you already existed. I didn't have to spend a single day where you weren't in this planet. And I know that your students feel the same way and believe you're very special and you're an incredible teacher. I already know that because it shows in every other aspect of your life. So thank you for being on because I think it's important to highlight people like you and how important teaching is and educating and, like you said, raising good people. And that's what you're doing. So Aida, thank you for being on. You are a magic maker. Absolutely.
Maddie, stop it! You're the magic maker. I appreciate you for having me on. I think that I mean, I love talking to you no matter when we get to talk. But, to talk about something that I'm passionate about, something that's part of my life and a part of who I am. Being a teacher is who I am. It's been who I've been my entire life. I maybe not always right with, when I'm dealing personally, how to teach in my personal moments is a little bit different, but at school, like, I've got that down packed, and I think that, the experience, the support, and the learning that I've done both in school and outside of school and even in our acting class, I've actually taught my kids some of the saying, because we were practicing like warm ups, and I was like, "Come on, guys, do it with me. Whether the weather be hot, you know." But yeah, I appreciate you, and I love that we became friends in the way that we did, and we can save that for another time. But yeah, you're a very special person to me too, and the fact that you have this platform where you're exploring people and their magic, you're always that person. You're the person that lifts people up, and you're the person that's, really highlights those key moments for people, and just know that you don't go unnoticed either.
Thank you. And thank you again just for being on. It's a pleasure to just talk to you in this different setting and get to really explore everything you're doing. Because yeah, like you said, you're doing so much and creating so much magic. And it's funny you bring up the acting exercises because I was jokingly doing them with my daughter the other day. So same mind. We're both thinking the same way. But Aida, thank you again, and I can't wait to share your
Always.
episode. And everyone out there listening, go out there and do some magic. See you next time.